in my story, Tiny Pass, it's supposed to be hard sci-fi, meaning like realistic and all that. And I do broach the topic of brain stuff. So I also look forward to Steph's feedback about how much I got it wrong. Doxy says, are there pests in the brain? Okay, I want to say it without giving any spoilers, but so one of the comments I got from Jubilee is she was like, oh no, I hate ants because on the cover of the books there's ants.
Right.
And so what I told her is it's not really about ants. The ants are a metaphor for something else.
Or a metaphor. Wow.
Yeah, I use metaphors in my book. Can you believe it?
Must be manic.
But yeah, anyway.
Worse than ants?
I told her it's worse. Yeah, she said I hate ants. She has ant phobia or something like that. So I said, oh, don't worry. Like there's ants very, very briefly mentioned in the book. And yeah, the bad thing that happens in the book is a lot worse than ants.
Oh God.
What?
I hate aunts. Are there any aunts in the book?
Well, it's unclear. It's ambiguous.
Okay. Are aunts a metaphor?
I don't think so.
All right.
Are most things worse than ants? I don't know. Are most things worse than ants? I feel like if you uniformly pick from like all English words, where we're using English words as a proxy for possible things, maybe all English nouns to further restrict it, I feel like on average they're less bad than ants. I'm assuming without really any justification that if you take the median of all English words, the balance is neutral. And ants...
It isn't. The balance is slightly negative.
Oh, really? Because I was going to say, and ants are kind of negative. Therefore, most things are better than ants. But you're saying the median word is actually slightly negative, which means, is it negative enough to be worse than ants? Is the question.
That's a great question. Yeah. I think, though, when I'm in the realm of horror, to me, ants barely register.
Yeah, I also agree.
Like, I don't want
this is
a lot of ants in my life, but...
So you know how humans confabulate, right? They don't know why they think the things they think.
Right.
In the same way, LLMs cannot introspect, right?
Yeah.
They don't know why. If you ask them, they'll just make something up. They'll literally confabulate.
Completely confabulate, yeah.
They can't look at their model weights and then say, oh, it's because the vector for this word has these numbers, and that's why I said this.
Right. Literally incapable of that.
But I was going to say, this question is something we could answer by looking at the model weights in an LLM. We can find the axis for good versus bad, and then we can say, okay, so look at all the points. Every word, or every token, technically, is a point in the vector space. Where does it lie on the spectrum from good to bad? And Steph is saying, based on our knowledge of English, it should be slightly negative. So probably the LLM structure will reflect that. And if you take the median of all the points, probably it'll be slightly negative. And then we can look at, okay, well, what about the token for ant? Where does that lie on the positive and negative? And then is it more negative than the median or not? Is the median more negative than ants?
Right.
Doxy says ants are horrific unless there's lots of them.
Yeah. I feel like it depends on the kind of ant. Like velvet ants are pretty horrific.
I mean, there's that famous torture methods, right? Burying your head in sand and then having fire ants bite you or whatever. That seems
terrible.
Yeah, so it's definitely terrible. So you can definitely do a horror story about ants, or where ants is the bad thing. So yes, you can write a horror story about ants, but if you take all possible tokens, there's things that are probably a lot worse than ants.
I think there are things that are worse than ants. Some of the ways that you can think about there being more negative than positive words. Obviously, the science has also been done, but I'm going to give you some kind of anecdotal ways to think about it. If you think about emotion words, there's way more words for negative emotions than there are positive. And the same is true for character traits. There's a lot more ways to describe somebody that you hate or a really bad date that you went on than there are to describe the good things about people.
Yeah, I don't know if that's intuitive, because if you don't already accept the premise, then I'd say, well, I don't know, maybe there are more good words.
The researchers noticed these things, and that's what made them curious. And then they went through the dictionary and assigned words, positive or negative valence, and came up with that data. And it's called the negativity bias. It's particularly pronounced in English. English is a 4-to-1.
4-to-1, that's way more than I thought. Way more negative
Yeah,
than I thought.
but other languages are not that negative.
It's interesting. I might have an uncertainty bias. I might be more non-committal than most people.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking about when you say, like, you presented an argument with the expectation that it would be persuasive, and I didn't find it persuasive, but I was like, well, but maybe a typical person does find it persuasive. Where you said, think about a date you've been on, like, and how many words you have to describe a good date versus a bad date. And my reaction is, I don't know, could be equal, but
Yeah.
maybe that's because
I don't know that I'm
uncertainty bias.
Yeah. I think if I'd wanted it to be really persuasive, it would have been more effective to actually have you do the experiment. I think there's an availability block. It requires a lot of verbal fluency immediately to be able to think of all those words and to tally them. So I was more just saying, these are exercises you could try doing at home if you were interested, or if you wanted to do it at your next party or whatever. But what happened is the researchers were asking people to describe other people. I think there was a dating profile scenario and trying to get people to categorize their emotions, because there's a lot of research on, are emotions categories universal? Does everyone have the same ones? How much nuance do people have? What level of what's called emotional granularity do people have, where they name a lot or versus a few emotions, that sort of thing. And all those people were doing the research and noticing, gosh, their subjects always had way more negative words than positive words. And it made them wonder, is this a feature of emotion words? Is this a feature of our subjects? Is it a recall bias problem? Is it a feature of English? If it is a feature of English, is it a feature of other languages? That sort of stuff. I'm not convinced that my explanation was super persuasive unless you actually try to do it. It's just how I was thinking of it in the moment.
Doxy says, I wonder if that negativity is because English was cultivated in a place where it's always raining. Well, even the idea that rain is a bad thing is social, right? It's not an absolute truth. Like in the desert, they might be very happy when it rains.
Right. Evolutionary psychologists explain it as the brain is more interested in predicting potential problems, attending to information that tells you about something that might go wrong, because it's more likely to keep you alive. And happy is good, but alive is better. So there's this bias towards information about potential problems, potential difficulties, people who might exploit you in all sorts of different ways. And you don't need as fine-grained distinctions about things that are awesome. You just say, oh, that's awesome, and go towards it.
That's plausible to me.
Really fine-grained information about exactly what kind of horror is in this horror book that Neb's written.
Yeah, what you say is very plausible, but it also made me think that it might not even be a factor of minds and cognition. It might be a factor of reality itself, because
maybe
in terms of entropy, there's usually a lot more ways things can be bad than that they can be good.
Right.
Like if you just arrange atoms randomly, there's only a few good ones, and most of them are like bad in the sense of nothing exists. You've turned the entire universe into uniform gas.
Right.
And so there's lots of ways things can be bad, but only a few ways things can be good.
Right. I was reading a Scott Alexander post earlier today. He was talking about genetic mutations and how they're much more likely to make you worse off than to make things better for you. And the example that he gave was, if you change one letter in a book, it's highly unlikely to make the book better.
Right.
There's a lot more ways for it to make the book worse than for it to improve the book. You have to get spectacularly lucky for that one letter change to improve the book, and it's pretty easy for it to vary slightly to considerably reduce the quality.
This is where smart Alex will come up with an example. Life is British in short, wife is British in short.
Right.
And then you say, if you do it randomly, then the odds are extremely small that it's going to be good.
Have you ever seen the show Red Dwarf?
I believe so. That's the British,
so
they're aliens.
Sci-fi, Mm-hmm. Sci-fi comedy. And one of the characters grew up in a religious sect where they hopped everywhere. And the reason that they hopped everywhere is because there's a passage in the Bible that says the most important virtues or something like that are faith, charity, and hope. And the greatest of these is hope. But they had a misprint in their Bible. So it said faith, charity, and hop. And the greatest of these is hop.
But for that to happen like randomly, it had to be twice in a row that they made that typo, which is extremely unlikely. The letter,
not necessarily an improvement.
That letter, but then in the next occurrence of hope, also the same deletion. What are the odds of that?
Yeah. There's also something called the Wicked Bible. You familiar with that? The Wicked Bible has 2 typos in it. I don't remember both of them, but one of them is it prints out the 10 commandments. It says, "Thou shalt commit adultery."
Oh, it says "shalt not."
Yes.
And so it's very embarrassing for everybody involved, and then they had to destroy it.
They did. They had to try and destroy as many copies of it as they could, but there's still a few left. It was the recent plot point of a very bad Netflix movie.
Doxy says that's Nebu's kind of Bible.